NIO CEO just revealed something that is super mega bullish. Everybody's sleeping on this. Nobody's focusing on this, all right? Everybody's worried about car sales, deliveries, cost cutting, reducing expenses, but people are sleeping on this fact that there's government incentives, government changes that are going to really propel this forward to the next tier that will absolutely shock everybody, okay? And what is it? Well, NIO CEO said their other revenues for NIO has been increasing like crazy, all right? And he kind of made a joke about this at the start. He said, like, you know, sometimes we're not really focused on making cars, and we've done a lot of things that aren't car related. For example, NIO phones, and he sort of plugged in a little advert that NIO phones still working very well, and it's kind of half jokingly. And of course, you know, you wouldn't consider the NIO phone a huge success, but then he said that NIO last quarter had its highest ever other revenues in terms of income, other revenue income ever. And then this is all thanks to a lot of things that they're exploring outside of vehicles. So stuff like chips, right? Also, of course, McLaren. NIO is getting millions and millions and millions of dollars from McLaren for consulting fees, R&D development. And of course, McLaren's using a lot of NIO's technology. So, you know, this other revenue section is growing like crazy. And then on top of that, there is also, of course, the Nvidia ban here in China, which is quite interesting because the Chinese government has told all these Chinese companies not to use Nvidia's chips. Let's first listen to what NIO CEO had to say, okay?
First, without a doubt, we are a car company, no matter what. Our main product is still cars. Actually, you're not wrong about credentials. In the future, I might have too many credentials. One person can only produce so many. We've also made phones. They're still very useful now. Of course, we've explored many directions. If you look at our future non-car income, our proportion is actually quite high. This year, our non-car revenue is under 10 billion. If we imagine there's a lot of potential, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on selling cars first.
So, of course, with this Nvidia ban, so to speak, telling Chinese companies not to use Nvidia's chips, this is, of course, going to impact a lot of competitors, companies that don't have their own chips. So, namely, guys like Zeekr, IM Motors, BYD, all these other guys that don't have their own autonomous driving chips, yeah, they're going to be in big trouble. And I think NIO saw this coming a long time ago, because even back in early 2020, I saw how I was with one of the NIO owners that was really close to the CEO, and he talked about how NIO had the front row seat witnessing sort of Huawei get banned and sanctioned by the US government, sort of limiting their use of foreign technologies. And then NIO knew that this was eventually going to happen if you get too successful, so you had to really make things yourself. So, you know, knowing that they made their own chips, their own software, they don't rely on Android, they don't rely on Nvidia anymore. They have their own stuff. Everything's in-house, built by themselves. They're sanction-proof. And the fact that there's that Nvidia ban with other guys might force competitors to choose a domestic solution. And a domestic solution would be a company like NIO, right? NIO with their own chips. And of course, NIO CEO has said that they're actively pursuing avenues of selling these chips to other people. And he said on video himself that, you know, NIO's chips are great, they're fantastic, and processing power is top of the line. And if there's anybody interested, of course, they can buy that chip. So you're seeing sort of NIO expand beyond just a car company and an energy company, because everybody's thinking about that. But what about selling chips, licensing out technology, right? All that kind of stuff. Licensing out battery swap, because I think another very key point is a lot of the sort of partner battery swap companies, so car brands that are promised, that signed in with these battery swap deals, that will launch cars that will be able to do battery swap at NIO swap stations. They're coming out with products like this year, later this year, and also next year as well. And with that, of course, every car sold, they're going to give some money to NIO. So with that, that's going to be bonus other revenue. Okay, I remember when the Envo card just launched, and then Xiaomi CEO Lei Jun actually visited NIO's headquarters and actually sat down and talked about different ways they can collaborate. Xiaomi really wanted to sort of unify the infotainment system, and then of course NIO CEO really pushed for having battery swap on Xiaomi cars as well, because it's kind of like, so the way he put it back then, it doesn't add a whole lot of extra like cost, all right? In terms of R&D, it'll cost a couple million to start off with for R&D for the car, but then afterwards, every car you might only see like 1,000 RMB extra for like just for the car to be able to do battery swap. So it's not a whole lot of cost for them to actually be able to do battery swap. And of course, there will be more companies joining in on the battery swap partnership. But what we're seeing right now is that those partnerships, all right, McLaren partnership, be it, they're actually getting money from this, right? You guys are always saying, oh, what happened to the Mercedes partnership and that kind of stuff. Mercedes partnership sort of fell under because they wanted to use NIO swap stations were branded as a Mercedes swap station. Apparently, that's what I heard. And of course, with NIO, come on, it's their own technology. Why would you let someone brand it as their own technology when it's clearly not? So they kind of said no to that. And that's the end of it. But McLaren, they're actually getting money in from McLaren, which is very, very nice. And it did show up on the Q2 earnings report. So they are getting money from these partnerships, and these will eventually add up. And if you slap on a few chip partners, think about how much Nvidia is making through chips. You got this ban that's already happening. All right, Chinese government saying no, don't use Nvidia chips. Then these guys that don't make their own chips. So who's making their own chips? Li Auto's trying. They're not really succeeding. Xpeng is succeeded, okay? And so has NIO. So, and of course, Huawei has their own chips as well. So eventually, these other companies will have to sort of find a partner here in China that's a sort of Nvidia alternative. So you could see NIO become a chip seller as well. And that's what they're actually trying to do. And if that happens, see how much Nvidia is earning from selling chips. NIO is going to be raking in a whole lot of money. I mean, if that's the case, and NIO lands a major partner like BYD becomes a major chip importer, that's crazy. All right, they're buying a lot of NIO's chips. Yeah, then you could see potentially NIO's other revenue exceed its car revenue. So NIO becoming a chip company. It's not crazy, all right? It's not crazy. So this is definitely something that could happen, and we're actually it's happening already, all right? So it's not like some hype dream. It's happening already at this moment, which is pretty nice. So yeah, do not sleep on the other revenue section. This is something that's growing tremendously, and we're going to see pretty good results from these, all right? Not from the NIO phone, but from the chip licensing, from battery swap licensing, tech licensing, tech consulting. Yeah, this will really boost profitability. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.